Hello from the Augusta Chronicle. We are live today on Facebook with Mayor candidate Gould Hagler. Gould, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, so they can see me and you? Or just, oh, okay. Well, great. Hey, everybody. I'm live, and I've been doing these live videos myself by and large, but this is the first one where I'm actually live in a newsroom. So here I am at the Augusta Chronicle, and I've got a team of people sitting across from me, sort of a panel, if you will, that will be asking questions back and forth. So I may be looking at the camera, I may be looking at who I'm talking to, but I'm excited to be here. You know, I'm running for mayor of Augusta. I'm running for Augusta. And a little bit about me. I was born and raised here. My mother and father brought me home from University Hospital in 1984 to Lombardy Court, and my mother still lives there today. It's the only house they've ever owned. My father's family's got deep roots here in Augusta. My mother's family actually ended up here because the Army stationed my grandfather here, and he bought a house in South Augusta and raised my mother and her two brothers there. And then he ended up having a stroke while he was visiting some family, and so we moved him to the Blue Goose. And when I moved back to Augusta, when I was buying my first house, I wanted to be near my grandfather and my parents, and so I chose West Augusta to live because it was close to family and church. But South Augusta's got a very near and dear place in my heart because it was where I spent a lot of time growing up, and I watched it change all during my years. My grandfather lived off Meadowbrook Drive, and I miss that place a lot. But my family has been involved in a lot of philanthropic endeavors here in the community, both in supporting nonprofits, helping to found other nonprofits like Historic Augusta and the Boys and Girls Club. And I've always kind of felt a call to serve. So with this mayor's race, I decided it was time for me to step up and fill that role. And it's something that I've been enjoying campaigning for the last 3 months. And election date's May 22nd. And here we are, looking forward to taking your questions. Do we have any coming up?
We've already got a question.
All right.
This is from Robert Simpkins. What can you do for Augusta that previous mayors could not do?
Okay, I like your question, and being that it's kind of broad, I guess that will require sort of a answer as specific as I can get it. Would be that I am a salesman. I've had 10 years sales experience, and in my little office on Broad Street, I deal with clients all over the country. In fact, most of my largest clients don't live in the state of Georgia, and I spend my days solving their problems and attending to their needs along with my staff. And what that's allowed me to do is really hone my listening skills and problem solving skills, because every day when somebody calls me up and has an issue they need me to solve, I have to then call like an underwriter, an insurance company, and ask them for their help in helping me solve that problem. I've been very successful at that. And if you've ever worked with an insurance company, you know that sometimes they can be a little difficult to work with. So I've definitely developed some problem-solving skills, some people skills in working with others to get a solution that benefits everybody. And the two things that I'll take into the mayor's office will be, A, being one of the best salesmen and advocates for Augusta that Augusta's ever seen, because I already have a lot of experience in being a champion for our community to my out-of-state clients, and B, working with people to help solve the problems in the community.
Gould, let's talk about your lack of political experience, because your opponent has been mayor now for several years.
Correct.
He was a state senator for several years. how do you overcome that? What do you see as the problem with that lack of experience, and how do you overcome that?
I don't see it as a problem. As a matter of fact, my go-to answer is that every politician at one point lacked political experience, if you will. So even my opponent at some point in his political career was running for an office for the very first time himself. And, you know, everybody, when they want to talk about political experience, they apply different definitions to the word political. Some people think, well, does he have experience campaigning? And that's what they mean. Other people mean leadership experience. Now, the campaigning side, correct. I've had to assemble a very large team of volunteers and people to help me along the way with the campaign. But the leadership experience is something that's been I've been working on for a very long time and been fairly good at, as a matter of fact. In fact, one of my high school guidance counselors, in a letter to one of the colleges I was applying to, she put in her letter that, you know, that Gould, it very specifically said Gould is a leader. And at the time, you know, I didn't think of myself as a leader, but she saw it. I never forgot it. I don't remember anything else from that letter except that. And it's something that, as I became older and more self-aware, that I realized that I did have a talent for leadership.
Well, Augusta's mayor is pretty limited in structural power in the Consolidation Act. So as mayor, how would you be able to impact city policy?
The mayor's job here in Augusta especially is to cast a vision and then help identify the movers and shakers who will help that vision come to life. And we have no shortage of people in Augusta that really want to see Augusta grow and thrive. And those people are private citizens, philanthropists, even commissioners, believe it or not, want to work for the best they can do for Augusta. And that's where my skills in working with people will come into play. If you've ever worked, again, just to repeat myself, if you ever worked with an insurance underwriter, you know, they're trained basically to say no, because they're trained to think in this little box, and if the risk doesn't fit that box, then it's an automatic no from them. And believe it or not, a lot of times in my career, what's made me successful is getting those underwriters to see outside that box a little bit and to ensure some risks that they otherwise might not have. And so my skills would be to cast that vision and find the people and help convince them and say, you know, let's really make a go of this because it's going to be good for the community. It doesn't take a mayor that has tons of power if you have the right people behind you to do it. And I think there's plenty of folks in the community willing to help.
I'd like to follow up on the experience question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that there are two elements to political experience, one being the sheer politics of it, being campaigning and so forth, and then the leadership. I think there's a third element, especially in this office, and that is running meetings in a public setting. I'd like you to speak to your experience in running meetings,
Okay.
as well as your familiarity with the mother's milk of public meetings, which is Robert's Rules of Order.
All right. Now, this is a great question. You're the first person to ask me about this. In college at Mercer, I was in a fraternity, and say what you will about fraternities, but it's where I honed a lot of my leadership experience. And we used Robert's Rules of Order every Sunday in our meetings. And so when I moved back to Augusta, and I was actually also in the Student Bar Association at my law school in Boston as my student representative. I guess that was my first foray into a campaign. But when I moved back to Augusta, I joined the Imperial Theater Board of Directors. I eventually became their vice president of the board. I was one of the youngest members they've ever had on the board and the youngest vice president they've ever had. But imagine my thrill at my first board meeting of a nonprofit when everything went by the Robert's Rules of Orders, and I said, oh, this is as familiar as it gets. I spent 4 years in college learning all of this. And, you know, of course, when our president was absent, I had to run the meetings as well. I think I was 26 at the time. Didn't skip a beat. Not at all. It's something I'm very familiar with and will have no problem doing as mayor and running a public meeting.
How much is the election going to play out along the South Augusta versus West Augusta theme, which I think we all know is kind of code for black versus white?
My campaign has tried very much to stay away from really addressing any kind of racial component. Big part of my life, I'm Hispanic, and people have no idea when they look at me. And you can imagine, like when I was in college, we had a lot of Hispanics who were our grounds crew, and my friends would, you know, we'd be walking along, and they might crack a joke about the Mexicans cutting the grass, having no idea that my grandfather came here from Mexico. And you know, my mother was the first person in his family to be born in America. He joined the Army. Like I said, he got here because Fort Gordon, he was stationed here. And having grown up with people looking at me and making a lot of assumptions about who I am and my background, simply because I don't look Hispanic, you know, it's caused me to have some sensitivity to racial components. And at the same time, too, I'm 34 years old. I mean, you know, a lot of people in the younger generations see all of that as being very divisive and really hindering the progress, especially of Augusta. I was at a forum at Sue Reynolds Community Center. One of the neatest things about that forum, this was, I think, last week, most of the people there were not from Augusta. They were from New Jersey, Illinois, New York. And a lot of them hadn't lived here for much longer than about a decade and a half. Some of them only lived here 3 years. And I was thrilled to see them, because I've known people here for generations that don't go to those community forums. But these new residents were interested in what was happening here. But the one common thing they all mentioned to me was they felt like they had stepped 50 years back in time, the ones that had come from up north down to Augusta. So it is something that, you know, while we remember the past and learn from it, we need to move on. So I've touched people in all areas of Augusta, of all races and creeds. What I have learned is that the support for change does not know skin color or religion or anything like that. I've had all kinds of people come up and hug me and tell me they support me. I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Well, is it presumptuous for you to run for mayor? I know this was suggested, you know, or is there possibly some other reason you ought to run for mayor?
That must have been on a word of the day calendar, I'm thinking. No, I don't think so. I think a lot of people in the community are ready for a change and ready to see some new leadership. And I don't think it's presumptuous at all. In fact, I have a lot of people that again tell me every day I'm doing good, that they're proud of me, and I'll tell you this, I really, in this whole process, I don't hear a whole lot of negativity. And maybe that's just unique, or maybe the negativity isn't reaching me somehow, but in the world today of Facebook and social media, you know, if there's a large negative rhetoric, you know it. No, I firmly believe I'm doing the absolute right thing for Augusta.
So I guess just to piggyback on that,
Mhm.
why should we fire Hardy Davis? What has he done wrong?
You know, me personally, I was a big supporter of his when he entered the race those years ago. I've known him for a while. I met him first when he was on our insurance committee up in Atlanta as one of our state reps. And I respect him. But like a lot of people, I was a little disappointed with the way he handled raising the office budget during his first year. And I didn't see where we necessarily had the promise of one Augusta fulfilled. In fact, right now we have the entire city fighting over an arena and whether or not we're going to build it one place or another, potentially on land we don't even own. I see a lot more division now. And I thought to myself, I think I can do better. And my job every day is to serve people. Because if I was not good at service, if that wasn't my goal and my priority every day in my career, there's no way that I would have been successful enough to even try out this endeavor. I've had to pull back 100% from my career the entire time I've been campaigning. And I've been very blessed, very fortunate, but at the same time, it did take a lot of hard work. You know, good service doesn't come easy. And what I bring to the table is the fact that I have very high standards for the kind of service I receive from people, and I take what I expect and I pass that along to others. Ever since I was 15 years old, it always annoyed me when somebody didn't return a phone call. So I always try my absolute best to return phone calls because I believe you do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And so how could I not return, your phone call, Susan? Well, at the same time, it annoys me when somebody doesn't return mine. So when you call me, I'm going to call you back because that's how I like to be treated. And that's what I'm hoping to bring to the mayor's office, is treat everybody the way I'd like to be treated and give everybody that same kind of customer service that's made me a fairly national name in the insurance business among some folks who have been top CEOs of Fortune 500 companies.
Well, on the arena, there's a proposal to possibly pick Regency Mall as the site to build it. I'd like to know, very specifically what your position is on where the new arena should be built and whether there should be a binding referendum on the arena question.
I do think that the process was wrong. I think we did it backwards. We should have asked the public for their opinions first and then taken that feedback. And we could have done it through a variety of community forums. Then we could have taken that feedback and presented that to the consultants and said, here, please, if you're going to pay somebody $140,000, at least go to them and say, this is what we want. We've gotten feedback from the public. Help us make this happen. Now, we can't go back in time and change any of that. But to answer your question, I would like to see it remain in a more urban area, and if downtown isn't that area, then maybe I know they were talking about there was a space off Riverwalk Parkway as well. That was one of the potential sites. Now, I haven't seen the full study. I'd love to see it because I'd love to see what $140,000 gets you when you're talking about an arena site selection study. So I can't wait to take a look at that. But personally, I'd like to see it remain downtown if at all possible. And, I think if we were going to bother putting the referendum on the ballot, it would have been nice if it was in some way binding. I read the other day that one commissioner said that when he was asked if he would abide by whatever the ballot question, whatever the voters decided, he said that he was going to abide by what the voters in his district wanted. And that's a line of thinking we have to get away from in our government, because I understand why you're concerned about representing your district, but only listening to your district as opposed to everybody else in Augusta who also matters holds us back.
So you're saying you would prefer it downtown, but if
Right.
voters said otherwise, you would agree with them?
Yeah, but we have to get the best deal we can for the city. Absolutely. I mean, Deke Copenhaver put it in the best way possible. I was at a commission meeting years ago, and a majority of people wanted something done. And Deke looked at everybody on the commission and said, we're elected by the majority. He said, I would urge everybody to listen to the majority. And it was a program keeping downtown clean is what it was. And that stuck with me, I mean, yeah, you're a leader, and you're elected to protect minority rights, but you also have to listen to the majority that wants the best for their city. It'll be interesting to see what happens with this referendum, especially at the end of the day, the commissioners are going to be the ones who vote for it. Like I said, I already know one that if their particular district says no, he's going to be a no vote, despite the fact that probably the entire city might vote yes. He's just going to listen to his district. I don't blame him for that, but that we need to change some of that rhetoric.
I'd like to ask a two-part follow-up to that.
Yeah.
One is, if you're on the commission and you really think it should be downtown, but the referendum comes in and says Gordon Highway, how do you vote, number one? And number two, your initial pronouncements on the arena question were much more nuanced, and you're much more definitive now. I'm wondering what changed.
Well, I've always wanted the arena to stay downtown. I think I've made that clear from day one. Really and truly, as far as the arena is concerned, I mean, somebody ran a poll. It wasn't me, but somebody did. I think y'all made it public. But I mean, the arena question, people are divided 50-50 on it. 100% of people agree, though, that the process has been absolute garbage. And so, we'll see what the votes say. We'll see if our commission does decide to listen to the voters on something that's non-binding. I mean, it's an opinion question. But again, I have a ton of opinions that sometimes don't work out myself because I can't find a good deal. I buy some rental properties sometimes, and there's sometimes a house I'd love to buy, but myself and the seller can't come to terms, and you have to move on. Somebody told me the deal of the century comes along, once a week, and I've learned that he's right. It's possible that if people want it in South Augusta, we simply might not be able to get a good deal on the Regency site. That doesn't mean there might not be other property in South Augusta we could put it on. But I could not, within good conscience, support a bad real estate deal for Augusta. There's just no way. We have to be, first and foremost protect our citizens, protect their tax dollars. We can't just have our way with it because it's other people's money.
So just to follow up,
Yeah.
it's the age-old dilemma between voting, conscience or consensus. And I think I hear you say, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think I hear you say that you would try to build toward that consensus, whatever it is, but if it's a bad deal, you'd go back to your conscience and say, no, I can't do that.
Yes, and that's because as an elected official, I mean, yes, you do have to listen to what your citizens want, but also you have a great responsibility to do your best by them. And you know, it would be wonderful if we could work out a great deal, no matter what the citizens decide. We've got to do something that's fiscally responsible. I mean, I think first and foremost, that's where the duty lies, is don't squander public money.
So how would you go about changing the minds of some of the commissioners who want the mall, the arena at Regency Mall?
I don't think a lot of commissioners want a bad deal either. Several of them in public forums I've been to, even the ones who support it. I watched one commissioner stand up in front of, there was probably 50 people in the room, and said he wanted it in downtown, or sorry, he wanted it at Regency Mall. But he would only support it if we got a good deal. And I applaud him for that, because that's the right line of thinking. That I appreciate him having a solid opinion, but I appreciate him wanting to give the citizens the best he can as far as a real estate deal is concerned. Dealing with real estate is tricky. People can let their emotions get in the way of it sometimes. The way I've dealt with it in my life, I've turned it into just a math problem. And I created a spreadsheet that I can plug the numbers in. And if the math works out, great. And if it doesn't, I move on and try to find another good deal. We can't let our emotions override our responsibility in the math problem that is, what is our financial return on this investment? Numbers, they don't know emotion. They don't know color. They don't know anything. Numbers speak for themselves. And we'll have to figure out, what's our investment? What are we getting back? What kind of money does it take to get that back? And is that deal even possible?
So if elected, how would you make yourself accessible and transparent with the public?
So I will have one assistant, and basically that'd be it. You'd have her number and my number, and one of us will call you back. And again, that's my biggest thing, is I don't like it when people don't call me back, so I do my best to be as available as I could. My cell phone number will be out there, and my assistant will have all of her information out there as well, because it's an everyday occurrence to engage with the citizens. So that's basically the real short, simple answer. There won't be 3 people to go through. Just be myself and my executive assistant. Which will probably keep us really busy, I can imagine.
What can you tell us about the city budget? How much is it, and what do you think of it?
City budget is, I believe, $823.2 million. It's not as large. It's not as large as our Richmond County school budget, but it's pretty big. And that document, I've looked over it, the one that Janice Jackson submitted recently, or not recently, but I guess beginning of the year, for the budget where everything's allocated. It's a pile of numbers to go through. But in the grand scheme of things, like for example, law enforcement is something I'm really big on helping them get as funded as they can be. And if you take that $823 million, for example, and condense that down into a number everybody can understand, call it $820. Take away a lot of zeros. Law enforcement wanted $2.4 million. They got $1.8, left them with $600,000 they still needed. Out of the $820 example we're giving, they needed 60 extra cents. And somebody should sharpen their pencil and fine law enforcement 60 cents to get them what they needed. Do we have a lot of viewers, by the way? How's it looking?
We've got a few, but not getting too many questions. Would like to have some more questions come in.
Yeah.
You know, you're running against an incumbent, you know, who has a lot of access to city resources. I mean, has that been a challenge, and what are you doing to kind of overcome that hurdle?
No, it hasn't been. It has not necessarily been a challenge. I mean, as far as specific numbers and things like that are concerned, but you know, the other day, I watched the incumbent tell a group of people about a hotel being built downtown that he was proud of, and he said it in such a way like it gave the impression that the city government helped make that hotel happen. Now, I happen to know the person who owned the land, and I happen to know the people who bought the land and are building the hotel. And Richmond County government was not involved in that transaction anyway. It was like if I sold a house to you and somebody down at the municipal building stood up and claimed they had something to do with that. It was a private deal among two parties. So I thought that was interesting. You know, I believe you should give credit where credit's due, and I think that instead of trying to take credit for a hotel being built downtown, you ought to give credit and say, you know, we commend these citizens for wanting to invest their money into our economy. They're taking a big risk. There's no guarantee the hotel is going to be filled. So, you know, you have to give credit where it's due, and you have to do what you can to encourage other citizens to show them Augusta's a good investment. Look what's going on. Now, you know, the funny thing about this, you know, I got an email from the Board of Elections, and they said that they're having a lot of pettiness going on with the signs. And I called down there and I said, well, how many complaints are you getting about my signs? And they said, none, hardly any at all. That's because we took the time to call property owners, ask for permission. I gave very strict instructions to my sign team about not putting them on public right-of-ways. We also had a sign form on my website to where landowners and private individuals would go on. Most of my signs that are out were actually a result of the people who came on the website asking for them to be put at their houses. And you mentioned about resources. Well, you know, I was sitting there thinking that, you know, the mayor had all kinds of resources and strategic places to put his signs. But, you know, several friends of mine called me up and they said, yeah, I saw the mayor's sign on my land. I took it down. So they said he didn't ask me permission. And that was interesting. So I was glad that I did it the right way and asked permission as opposed to just taking what I wanted. So some of those resources I don't think has hurt me either.
I do have a question from
Yes.
Viewer Robert Simpkins. Can you bring in new businesses and get Augusta out of the past?
I'm doing my absolute best to get Augusta out of the past, and the first thing you can do to do that is vote for me. And then secondly, yes, I do have, I mentioned it before, I'm very blessed with some particular clients that I have that you know, I've helped over the years that I plan on reaching out to see if they'll help me with some of their contacts and seeing what we can do to bring some business into Augusta. You know, I mean, look at, for example, I mentioned this at National Hills, their forum. We're basically the golf capital of the world, and we have two companies here related to golf, you know, Club Car and Easy Go. They were both founded here. Georgia is a super business-friendly state. We took the Mercedes-Benz headquarters from New Jersey, and when companies are trying to make decisions on where they go, they look at state and local tax credits. They look at how business friendly a certain city can be. We can compete with Atlanta on that. And we won't have 2-hour commutes for their employees to get to work either. We offer tremendous lifestyle, cost of living, great weather. There was a reason Bobby Jones drove down here from Atlanta to play golf and why he chose this place for his beautiful golf course. And yeah, I'm looking forward to working with Cal Ray, who's our new Economic Development Authority Director, on a plan to get businesses here and say, look, first of all, at what Georgia can offer you. Because again, if it wasn't a good deal, Mercedes wouldn't be here. And then we go, okay, now what can Augusta offer?
The commission has an image of being inefficient and not good stewards of taxpayer dollars. Do you agree with that image? And if so, what would you do to change it if elected mayor?
So, you could replace that word commission with government, and that could apply to everybody everywhere. You know, people's perception of government a lot of times, by and large, is negative. And a lot of cities, not just ours, feel like their local government is fiscally irresponsible. And you hear people all the time talk about congressmen and senators. Oh, that guy's an idiot. You know, these are smart people. You just disagree with them. I do feel like, and I've been watching for many years since I've been back to Augusta, that our commission now does do a much better job than the commission we had 10 years ago. And so I do see positivity in that trend, and hopefully that will continue moving forward. But we're never going to please enough people all the time to have a general consensus that the government is doing all good things all the time. You will always have a group that's negative about it. And in fact, I was meeting with a leader in the Korean community several months ago, and we had to have a translator. He didn't speak any English. But they were talking about, you know, difficulty they have in sometimes getting businesses started up. And they're a little apprehensive about working with our local government and getting these businesses started because to them the process is scary and it seems inefficient. And he was using all these adjectives. And I said, that's not a unique problem to y'all. I said, everybody views working with the government like that. You know, I said, you don't like going to the DMV, do you? And they were like, no, I don't. I said, yeah, neither do the rest of us. And it was a very refreshing conversation for those folks in our local Korean community because they viewed that as a problem that simply only applied to them. And they found it refreshing that I said, no, even the rest of us have issues with it. But we can do our best every day, you know. That's the best you can do. But I am looking forward to seeing, you know, from 2000, when I moved back here, 2007 is when I moved back to Augusta, to now 2018. I think our commission's made great strides. I can't wait to see where they are in 2028. I'm excited for that.
I have a question from Will McKettrick. I'd like to know your thoughts on the whitewater study. It's being talked about at the Lock and Dam.
Yeah. Tanya's a friend of mine, and Tanya, so if you're watching this, I wish we could have just helped you raise the money from some of your donors to pay for that study. Y'all reported, I mean, it went from she was requesting $10,000 to then it was 15 to now I think it's like close to 30 grand or something because people wanted to tack on all this other stuff. That's the inefficiency everybody's talking about in government. Everybody wanted to give their 2 cents and go, well, as long as we're studying that, let's study this too and tack that on. What happened then was now it's large enough to where it has to be bid out. Whereas before, if it had just been the 10 grand she wanted, she had a company already lined up to do the study because she had a timeline and a deadline she had to meet. So, yes, it got out of hand. And I talked to a few people who said, "Oh, I'm kind of responsible for that." I said, "Well, you know, live and learn. We know for next time." But I'm a big outdoorsman. I hunt, I fish, I ski, I camp. I'm a triathlete. I bike, I run, I swim. I love Augusta because Augusta has so many wonderful outdoor activities, and I'd love to see a whitewater park come here. I do think, and I've got a good friend of mine who worked at the National Whitewater Center up in Charlotte, and he's currently now at University of Tennessee, Knoxville, as one of their, I think, main outdoor program coordinators. He's unbelievable. He's almost 40 years old. He does stand-up paddleboarding. But I talk about him because he is somebody that I regard as an expert as far as whitewater parks are concerned, having all that experience at the National Whitewater Center and working for the American Canoe Association. So I would urge our local leaders and local nonprofit leaders to reach out to those groups, the ACA, American Canoe Association, people like my friend who have had all that experience in being whitewater guides and things like that. Because if we're going to build it, we need to do it right the first time. And so if Columbus, Georgia has got a whitewater park and it's 2 miles long, then I would love to go to Columbus and say, what do you wish you'd done differently? And get their feedback. Because as wonderful as the one in Columbus may be, they by now have figured out that there was some other things they could have done from the get-go. And we need to do a better job reaching out to those communities and learning from them. But yeah, I'm excited about the possibility of it. When I saw how everything went as far as the commission was concerned and how it blew up from $10,000 to $30,000 now, and the timeline, the deadline won't be met now. Although I think the Corps, they pushed their deadline back now to help. But we shouldn't have gotten to that point. I'm proud of the community that the commissioners want to step up and help. But if I had been in that meeting running it, I'd have urged them, please, just give Tanya what she wants. Let's get it done efficiently.
I have a related question from viewer Shabazz Ali, who says, can you bring some more attractions to the Riverwalk?
All right. Hey, Shabazz, how are you? He and I are Facebook friends, which we've never officially met. We had a few things that, a few meetings we tried to make, but then we both got busy. But I hope I meet you soon. So bringing more attractions to Riverwalk. I remember going down there and seeing ice cream vendors, lemonade stands, and Riverwalk almost seems kind of dead now. And I think there's a safety perception. So we definitely need to work on the safety perception first, and then work on, getting festivals to not locate there, but getting festival goers to utilize it. I love the Commons, and right now St. Patrick's Day, for example, Arts in the Heart, the Augusta Commons is heavily used, as it should be. But what can we do to make St. Patrick's Day, for example, a bigger festival where you have that spillover out onto the Riverwalk for people to enjoy? And it may be that you decide you sell some vendor space down there, because you have to have something for the people to go do. But I agree with you, Shabazz. It's not as utilized as it was when I was little and when you were little. And we can get back to that. I think we can. But we got to start by certainly promoting as a safe place. I think everybody still remembers that incident a few years ago where that couple was hurt really bad. So that's something, unfortunately, people remember, and they make a decision to not go to the Riverwalk ever again, and they stick by it. So we definitely have a public perception issue we got to work through.
Do you tell me how you have the temperament to serve as mayor of Augusta?
Very thick skin. That's the best answer I have for you. I'm really, and So I really just love people. I really don't. I don't have any kind of apprehension against folks or any kind of reason to not make new friends. So there's a lot about my personality that goes into that. But I also don't let other people really get me down at all. I tend to stay really positive and upbeat and focused. And yeah, the temperament thing is it's a tricky question to ask, because it takes a lot about knowing really who you are and then putting that into words. And I still have difficulties really explaining how everything works up here as far as my temperament's concerned. One interesting thing to know about me, I can tell you this, I don't get stressed real easily. And it's a scientific fact. So I have a twin brother. And my brother and I have been participating in a twin study that started at MCG, back when it was MCG. Well, I guess it's still MCG at AU. And that study went on for years and years. The last time I participated in it, they moved it to MUSC in Charleston, and I went down there in my 20s. And the doctor asked me one day, he said, "Have you ever been curious about what we're studying?" I said, "Well, yeah, I am." What they would do was they would take twins and they would do a series of stress tests, running, jumping up and down, playing a video game with a direct goal. They were measuring all your stress levels and comparing how it is in identical twins. So the doctor basically put it this way. He said, if we had everybody play a video game, and again, I'm talking to these other people in the room here with me in case you're tuning in, but if you're playing a video game and an average person has a stress level of about here, he said, you're here. He said, now your brother's about here. Sorry, Mike. He gets stressed kind of easily. But the doctor put in perspective to me that, I don't know if it's a chemical thing in your brain or just nerves or whatever, but he said, you just are unique in how you handle stress. And yeah, that was. I think the study may even still be going on. I just don't get called that often to go back. But that was neat to learn.
That's interesting. Let's talk a little bit more about you.
Yeah.
The knock, even among some of your supporters early on, was questions about your gravitas.
Okay.
Your life experience, I guess age,
Mm-hmm.
your seriousness, the amount of wisdom you may have at 33, not 34. Do you feel like you've grown in this campaigning process? Did you feel like you're getting your footing? And do you feel that your gravitas is there?
I would not have run for mayor if I wasn't ready, if I didn't feel prepared. Because I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for Augusta. I already enjoy a good reputation. I already enjoy a good base of clients that love me and refer business to me because they know the good job I will do for them, and they know that when they say you can call Gould Hagler, that they won't get a phone call back saying, why did you refer me to that schmuck? They know that they'll get a phone call saying, thanks. And the easy thing for me to do in life would be to just have stayed out of all this and kept doing what I've been doing for 10 years. But life for me is not about doing the easy thing. Sometimes it's about doing what you have to do, what you know is right. And the biggest thing that I have received out of campaigning has just been tremendous respect for people, for supporters, for folks. I mean, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, it takes a lot of volunteers to help make this work. And I have been absolutely humbled every day by it. I've had old friends from high school that, moved away, reach out to me and say, hey, I'm proud of you. Is this still your cell phone number? That's how long it's been. They didn't know if my cell phone number is the same. Going, if this is Gould, I want to help. They've donated money online to me. I've had, I had somebody, I went turkey hunting with somebody last year. He's a sort of a friend of a friend, but he's an expert turkey hunter. And he and I ended up going hunting last year, and that's the only time we interacted was that one hunt, for several hours. He was one of the first people to reach out to me and tell me how proud he was of me. And he said in his text, Augusta needs you and your leadership. And I was just so taken back by the impression that this fellow, who really in his grand scheme of his life has only known me for a few hours, there was no reason for him to say that unless he meant it. And this fella is very well known in the outdoors community nationally. He has worked with many presidents of the United States in advising them on national conservation efforts and things like that. So a compliment from him meant the world to me. And the fact that he believed in me and only knowing me a short amount of time, when you're in the woods, you really get to know somebody because you start running out of things to talk about and you just get real with each other.
Just tell us this wasn't Dick Cheney.
No, it was not Dick
Okay.
Cheney.
All right.
It wasn't Dick
Just
Cheney.
wanted to clarify that.
No, but like I said, it's been a humbling experience to even people that, I hadn't seen in sometimes 20 years since I was in high school, that reach out and say, I'm not surprised you're doing this. Remembering you from high school and the kind of leader you were just in high school, they're going, I'm glad. If I didn't feel ready for this, I wouldn't be in this position right now.
How long had you been considering running for mayor, and what one thing made you make that final commitment to do so?
I was not necessarily considering running for mayor. I thought it might be something that one day I might do, but I wasn't giving it any kind of serious thought. Now, I actually was seriously considering running for a commissioner's seat. I live in District 3, and that's when I first started thinking I would do my part. And my first line of thinking was, well, I'd like to run for county commissioner sometime. District 3's got a great commissioner. I was taught that when good people are in office or good people are running for re-election, focus on your work, focus on your family, and support those good people 100%. And I don't use that term to say that anybody's a bad person. I just use that term sort of in general. Somebody that I feel like I agree with and will want to support is running for office or in office, that I should. I get that from my father. See, he was an attorney, and he loved his job. And he always, told me that he did a lot of research in who was running because with the demands of his work, he was never able to really run for office. I'm in a little bit different position, but if 2020, which is when District 3's commission seat is up, if 2020 had gotten here and somebody that I felt like I could support was going to step up and run for that commission seat, again, I'm young and have a young family. I'd have still taken my dad's advice and fully backed and supported that particular candidate, because it is service, and campaigning is extremely time-consuming and difficult. The mayor's race here was unique, where it became very clear to me there was not going to be a candidate on the ballot that I was going to support. I think that's evident because I'm the only other person on the ballot. And so I was faced with a decision in my own mind, thinking, do I want to wake up saying I wish somebody had done something when I'm perfectly capable of being that somebody to do that thing? If you walk down the street so many people look at a piece of trash and say, well, somebody should pick that up. I was raised to pick that piece of trash up and do what was needed to be done. And so that's why I made my decision to run for mayor. And believe me, if I had felt like that and made that and wanted to make that decision 9 months ago, everybody would have seen me around a whole lot earlier. But 9 months ago, I was like everybody else in the community. Oh, somebody's going to run. Somebody I can really support and get behind is going to run. I had to be that person.
Well, we have one more question from Facebook.
Okay.
Sean Allen asks, and we've touched on this a little bit already, but do you have an awareness and understanding to work alongside the different personalities on the Augusta Commission?
Yes. The short answer is yes. In my life, I have had friends from all walks of life. In my fraternity, we had one of my friends was from a very privileged background from up in New England, and another great friend of mine in the fraternity was he wouldn't mind me saying this, he was a plumber's son, and he was smart. He was super smart. But he did not grow up in the same lifestyle with the same opportunities that our friend in New England had. But you know, at the end of the day, it didn't matter. We just all enjoyed being together, and you know, we enjoyed each other for our personalities, as unique and different as they were, and our backgrounds as unique and different as they were. And when I moved up to Boston, you know, it was even more different up there. Just the makeup of the composition of my friends. But I've always prided myself in having friends from all over the country, of all different backgrounds. And I really feel like that's helped me be able to work with and understand people better. And it's also helped me in giving me a wide variety of trusted, respected individuals that, you know, I've had to reach out to for advice over my life. Yeah.
I've got one last question, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of a two-part. What is the most important function of the mayor in Augusta, Georgia? And do you think there need to be any changes made to the form of government?
Most important function, in my opinion, is to cast the vision of where we want the city to be and work with people to get us there. I don't think there's a lot of people that believe, you know, the mayor should have more power. You know, we'd have to rewrite the charter for all of that. I really don't think that the mayor's role, the way the charter is written, was designed to make it ineffective. I'm really excited to hopefully be elected mayor and really step into that role as it was meant to be done and work with the others, the commissioners, who have stepped into their roles and allow them to do their work as it was meant to be done as well, and to just keep that positive momentum moving forward, much like a CEO of a company has to work with a board of directors. The Augusta mayor is essentially the CEO of the city.
Could I ask a follow-up question on that? You mentioned vision. What is your vision of Augusta in terms of what you can try to get as specific as possible at the end of 4 years, if elected? What do you hope to have accomplished? And if you get reelected, what specifically would you hope to have accomplished at the end of 8 years?
My ultimate goal is for Augusta to be a competitive powerhouse when it comes to jobs and economic opportunity. What I mean by that is, you know, my graduating class from high school, when I moved back to Augusta, a lot of them didn't come back. The jobs weren't here. They moved away. And I've talked to a lot of people from our various cultures in the community. And if you ever want to see what culture, what Augusta really has to offer, you can go to Arts in the Heart. And you go see everybody from all over the planet that live in Augusta and then sample their cuisine. It's great. But the one thing everybody and all those cultural groups that I've talked to is worried about is whether or not their sons and daughters are going to be in Augusta 10, 20, 30 years from now. Are the jobs going to be here for them? Is this going to be a place where the entertainment, what we have available here, is enticing enough to keep them here? And, our world is changing. North Augusta, for example, the city administrator came and spoke to my Rotary Club, and he was talking about how they were reaching out to different companies to come and relocate to North Augusta. And he told us something. This was several years ago. I never forgot this. He said it used to be that you got out of school and you moved to where there was a job. Now people get out of school and they move to where they want to live, and then they look for a job. And what those companies were telling North Augusta was that they weren't going to come yet because North Augusta needed to position itself as a place where the people were coming first. Because those large companies, they've studied those trends. The city administrator was talking specifically about the ballpark they're building. He said a lot of those condos and apartments, he looked at all of us, he said they're going to be one bedroom because they are targeting those recent college grads. They want to make it a place where the college grads will come first. And then he said their next step is to go to the companies and say, okay, we got all this workforce here, but they got no jobs. Please come to North Augusta. And he was just fascinated, everybody was at this meeting, about how wild of a notion that is, because it's completely different than how it's been, for hundreds of years. People just, they went to where the work was. So this is a very different strategy that North Augusta has learned, and I learned from them. We need to implement that kind of strategy here. And what I'd love to do is, work with the different communities that are in Augusta and, help make them more enticing for people to come. You can get a house in Harrisburg for pretty low cost. Renovate it. Next thing you know, you have a historic house in a historic neighborhood that is a complete gut and redo on the renovation side of it for less than $60,000. And I know it can be done because I've done it. I have friends that have done it. One person who's a client of mine bought a house on Battle Row, and he told me that when he's all said and done, he's actually fixing it up himself. He's a handyman. But he'll only be in the house at $35,000. It's almost 2,000 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath. Everything in it will be pretty much brand new. Where else can you get that kind of amazing deal on that kind of square footage of a house? We need to promote that. North Charleston did a good job with it. North Charleston was a mill town, and I was down there visiting a client of mine whose company is headquartered in North Charleston. I asked him, I said, I noticed everything looks real nice here. I noticed they're all, shotgun houses and things like that. It was clearly a mill town. He said, oh yeah, he said the hipsters started moving over here because we're close enough to downtown Charleston and fixing these houses up for pennies on the dollar. And next thing you know, when you had the influx of people, restaurants and coffee shops and nightclubs started popping up in North Charleston. Turned it around. They can do it. We can do it too.
Well, all right, Gould, would you like to say a few words to close out this?
Go vote for me. Yeah, that's voting's May 22nd. You can go vote early right now at Warren Road. You can vote early at the municipal building, and you can vote early at Diamond Lakes. And whatever you do, just go vote. Make your voice heard. Every vote does count. So thank you for coming by and watching, and thank you for your questions. And I hope everybody has a great day.